working class boys that were just living the dream, really.
So I said, what award would you give me then? And he turned around and says to me, most improved player.
I do understand why anyone would think that's any different for an Asda worker going for a beer with a Tesco's worker.
Hello and welcome back to the warm-up, episode 9. I think we're a quarter way through the season now, aren't we? I think nearly.
Take your word
there
for
or
it.
Thereabouts. But yeah, please subscribe before we get into everything. We've got 2 great guests today. Gordon, who have we got on?
2 brilliant guests, Kevin Thomson and your long-lost uncle, or dad or brother or something.
Good-looking guy.
I cannot get out. You two must be related. Chris Burke and Sam North.
We'll do a DNA test later.
Yeah, we need to. won't we?
What is the story? How old are you again?
40.
Could be.
He played until I thought he was older than that because he played for so
How old
long.
are you, Sam?
30.
Nah, no,
Oh,
There's
fuck,
no,
that's what-
we're safe.
There's something in there though, seriously. We've
You're
never
looking
had 2
great.
guests that look more alike than you two. But anyway, pleasure to have you both.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you. Scottish football, busy as ever. It's a bit about the managerial vacancies this week, I guess. You know, you get to that stage in the season. They all survive up to a point. Heart's been a massive one. Kevin, you'll know Stephen Naismith well. You're a young coach yourself. Is it just a reminder of the sort of cutthroat nature of things?
Yeah, I think it is, Gordon. I think it's obviously we both know Nazy, great lad, and I suppose the shame is that I had a brilliant season last year, finished 3rd, managed to keep a hold of the kind of magic striker, and then you start the season really poorly and you find yourself obviously in the scrap heap, really. But I'm sure Nazy, with the mentality that he's got, he'll bounce back, he'll have learnt off it, cliche or not cliche, but he'll have obviously seen success, he'll have seen a vision where he wanted to go, and now he's had a wee speed bump in the road. He probably needs to reflect and see where he wants to go off the back of that. But you never want to see anyone, and obviously people that you appreciate and like, you never want to see them lose their job.
Are you surprised of how Hearts have started the season? Because last season obviously went so well, but I think Shankland's still without a goal, isn't he, in the league?
Listen, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think he done such a great job last year. Finishing 3rd, getting the club into Europe. And this season, like Kevin spoke about, people don't realise how difficult it is to manage a team when you're looking to perform well in the league campaign and then play in Europe. And then you're looking at the squad. You need to maybe add squad extra players to that as well in that aspect. So I think in reflection, after 6 or 7 games or so, it was a little bit harsh in my if I was to look at it. Still a young manager, still try to get the right team and the balance of the team, whether they play on a Thursday and a Sunday. Most of the games has happened recently where it's been Europe and then a game in the Saturday, the Sunday. So it's a hard one for him, isn't it? But at the same time, like Kevin said, he'll bounce back. He will. I know his character, I know what he's like, and you would have liked to think he would have maybe get a little bit more time in that.
Yeah, what kind of route do you think they'll go down with their next manager? Do you think they'll go Scottish, or will they maybe look to do what Aberdeen are doing with it?
I think it's a hard one, really. I think they'll probably be bold. I think they need to be. They've obviously, I might be wrong, but I'm sure the people behind the scenes, when you're going to appoint someone like Stephen Naismith, who's the kind of rookie manager, he's obviously played at the club, he's then been involved in the 18s, he's been the B team, and then he finds himself obviously in the first team. Obviously great reputation as a player, kind of the fan base we're on side as such. You're always going to get the people that are rumbling, we know that, it's the industry that we work in, but to go and have his first full season as a manager and do what he done last year, I think was superb. I think as a club, the narrative will be finding somebody experienced. You've obviously got Derek McInnes, you've got Stephen Robinson, guys that might not suit Burkey. Burkey might be the new Killie'S manager. You never know how it can work. But I'm just obviously flying a kite really to these type of people. I would imagine they would be on the radar. You obviously look at the job that the new Aberdeen manager's doing, a wee bit an unknown, so you wonder if they'll, or they should, I suppose, how big a club they are, throw their net far and wide to try and find one of these hidden gems, and without being disrespectful, maybe names that are not accustomed to us up here, but certainly boys that might be plying their trade somewhere else in Europe that might just quite fancy a job like the Jambos.
We're not daft enough to think Kilmarnock employee Chris Burke comes on here and tips Derek McInnes for
he's not going to happen.
He's spoken about it in a more general sense. See, when that speculation happens and it's inevitable and it's just a compliment, really, obviously, to the job that's been done. Do you feel it when you work at the club? Is it become like the elephant in the room a bit? How does it work?
As a fan, I think the first thing you think when a job like that comes up, whether it's in Scotland or in England, the first thing I think to myself is, well, I hope they're not going to approach your manager.
Yeah.
And that's credit, as you said, and a compliment to him of the achievements that he's done at Aberdeen and then quickly at Kilmarnock Football Club. So I'm hoping that selfishly that doesn't happen. I'd love him to stay at Kilmarnock for as long as he can, as long as he would want to be, as long as the club would want him to be there. And I'm sure it's a really, really good fit at this moment in time. He did say that he believes the team can even be better than what they were last year. And we all believe that as a group. Obviously,
Europe must have took a lot out of him at the start of this season as well. 6 games, wasn't it? 3 different ties, home and away.
And no disrespect to Kilmarnock, but Kilmarnock's probably not used to that.
And they did well. They were close to Copenhagen, to getting a result against Copenhagen that
the
final
games,
tie. Yeah.
the games. You're right, Sam. The games that, if you watch back, we were always in the game. Always in the games. Competed really well. You could say that every team that in Europe that came to us, they didn't really want to play us. And obviously they did well when they were away from home. So, yeah, to answer your question, I really, really do hope that one stays quiet and under the radar. And I think we'll probably just leave it up to the rest, like yourselves and the media, and like Kevin here sitting next to me, that you can talk about that a little bit more than what I can.
Your old pal Scott Brown, he was linked with that St Johnstone job, and then reports in the last couple of days that's not on the cards. He's spoken to him about it. He's given us an exclusive.
I've not, but I did actually obviously see online that he was the kind of front runner, and it looked as though he was. And I'm not one of the type of people that would send him a message to be kind of nosy as such about his business, but I'm sure obviously if I seen his boys down at Eastmains as well, so.
You text me about Derek
Sometimes.
McInnes.
That's a lie. I'll have the lawyers on the phone to you. So. Aye, if I seen him, Gordon, obviously face to face, it's not the type of thing I would reach out to send him a message.
Pleased to see him going well, though. Obviously,
Aye,
it's
and listen, I think he was desperate to get back in when he took their job. Been well backed, obviously down there, obviously good mates with Whittaker. So delighted to see that they're doing well, and it's probably as open a championship as we've seen. There's without being disrespectful to them, there's no real big hitter with a big budget like a Dundee United or whatever that's come down for the Premier League. You expect them to bounce straight back up. So I think I seen somebody say that Ayr have not been in the top league for like 50 years. I'm presuming that's when the top league never used to be the Premier League. So it would be an unbelievable job if him and Whittaker could potentially get Ayr promoted this year.
Yeah, it would be. And obviously you mentioned the championship being quite tight as well. What about McGlynn at Falkirk? Just a quick word on him. Like, would he be linked to some of the bigger jobs, do you reckon?
Aye, and I actually think it's unfair that John don't get the reputation that he deserves. I think he's done an unbelievable job. I actually got offered the Rafe job off the back of John McGlynn when he moved to Falkirk, albeit John was going for the championship, jumping down to obviously Falkirk that were in League One at the time, albeit they were the kind of joint favourites with Hamilton. And he'd done a really good job at Rafe, and it was probably the narrative within the fan base that they were gutted to see him leave. So it shows you how highly thought he was. Obviously Ian Murray followed that and they'd done a really good job as well. So I think when you think of John, I think John was the youth team manager at Hearts when I was a youth team player at Hibs.
Right, yeah.
And he's obviously totally different from what he was then. He was a baller and shouter. He was one that you certainly wouldn't want to cross on the sidelines. And now you watch his Falkirk team, who obviously play a great brand of football. They pass it. I think
played well at Celtic Park as well at the weekend.
They did, and probably, I know obviously Brendan was probably sticking the needle in a wee bit, saying that it's probably the toughest challenge they've had, which is fine. But it's no, I think he's done I agree, Sam. I think he deserves a lot of plaudits and a lot of credit, and I think he gets that. But you just hope that he also, I'm sure he's fully focused on Falkirk. But when these big jobs come, your St Johnstone's, your Hearts, I think it's only fair that he should be in the mix.
A lot of people don't know this, but John McGlynn was the last coach that coached me. It was the last training session. So when I said I was looking to play on after Kilmarnock, which came to a shock to you, Gordon. I think if you remember,
I do remember
you
that.
had to cut the TV, didn't you? And say,
right,
let's go again.
Right, so
No,
was that the PFA?
Yeah, it was the PFA trials,
like exit trials that they have.
Yeah.
So he goes along to you were helping
I
him
had
out.
to talk to the kids after their training session. Then
So-
he asked for an interview about
So I'm
Kilmarnock.
interviewing him about like Kilmarnock next season, and then he just sort of drops in halfway through that he's retiring.
No,
It's nice
I was
nonsense.
going to continue to play, but I'm leaving Kilmarnock.
That was it. Sorry, yeah,
So
that was it.
And you went,
To get those.
But a bit in the middle, but we had to start again because the full tone of the interview was just different.
your face just went totally went right.
I was like,
where'd I go
You've
from
got to
here?
think on your feet. So
how did
then
John
McGlynn,
McGlynn-
yeah. What's
So then
this?
what happened is I said I was going to keep playing, which I never. I just needed a wee bit more time to reflect and realise that my time was up and to start a new journey. But I actually phoned John McGlynn to ask him if I could train with him, because I thought to myself, his style of play, I like it. League One, Hopefully I can, maybe help a team get promoted into the championship or whatever. So he's happy enough for me to come in and train. There's a video session before the training session about the game. I think they played the actual Premiership team and they beat them in pre-season. So that lasted about 30 minutes or so, talking and explaining about the game, which was really interesting, the way he did things.
So half an hour video before a friendly?
And then, no, after. And then we went out to train. He explained the training session, did the training session. I really liked the training session. Training session was good. A lot about the midfielders. He uses the midfielders a lot in rotations. And then I get in the car and I think to myself, I was more interested in learning what John McGlynn was coaching the team and what his training sessions were like. And I just thought to myself in the car, like, that's me done.
So actually, he really helped, made you
He
realise
helped
that,
me, yeah.
that it was
He
time
loved
to
him
Always
to put you into retirement.
Yeah, well, I could say that, but
Technically.
I phoned him after it and I thanked him and I explained the situation.
Brilliant.
That's great. Yeah.
This is probably the best thing that happened to me. When I thought to myself, I was trying to maybe earn a contract at Falkirk, not saying that I was going to get one,
Just
but I
shows you,
actually
though,
thought to
how these
myself,
things come
it's
around.
time to move on and start
What-
your coaching journey.
Two young coaches, they'll know all about
They'll know what the Rondo is.
the Rondo. Our Rondo's a bit different.
You're any
Our
good at a
Rondo.
Rondo?
Rondo is
These two
I
would
love
be
a
good.
Rondo.
Yeah, he loves
These
Rondo.
two would
Rondo,
have
yeah.
us. Did you see? I'm going to bring this up every week until you need to do it again. Did you see him trying to recreate Dom Thomas's goal of the month?
No.
Thank God.
I'll show you the video.
Yeah,
No, I did it right. It wasn't
That's-
that bad.
The
He's
thought
got some
of-
left Duke, Don Thomas, to be
Well,
fair.
he had to try and he's right, to be fair, because
It's fair, like,
we're asking
I'm
too
right
much
first,
of you.
yeah.
But the thought of us two getting passed about off these two, so it's our turn to send them scurrying.
Put us under
around.
Right,
pressure.
on you go.
5 quick fire questions from me to you. Same for you two. We need to
Right,
split
okay.
you two up. You've been spending
Yeah,
too
okay.
much time
That's fair.
together.
That's
So.
I was going to wear that green polo as well.
Oh, mate,
Exactly.
you should have done.
Right,
Tell us
ready?
back.
Got the memo.
Chris Burke, first question. Sunderland till I die or Blue Heaven?
Oh my goodness, Blue Heaven.
Just try and forget that it exists. You just try and forget about it.
Listen, Blue
loved
Heaven.
it.
Do you know what Blue Heaven was
I
great for?
loved it.
But you loved it.
Do you see,
you
because
want
as a kid, just like... and
They
I was
only
just
told me
getting-
about this today, by the way.
So
I've
he's
not
too
heard.
young and he's...
Oh, you
Oh,
never
I've
watched
only
it.
lived in
I've
Scotland
got the
last few years.
DVD and stuff at home. Do you
Oh,
want me to
nah,
give you it?
I'll come round and we'll do it.
I think he means VHS.
I know, I was trying to say.
Well,
Yeah.
it was just the first, just as a kid, it could have been any club. I wouldn't have cared what club it was, but it was the first insight into what
It
was,
was.
what was that like for you guys getting those?
They
cameras
followed you
around?
about for ages. They followed you about for about a year and a half. And they
Was
would
it that long?
kind of manipulate sort of situations as well.
Mm.
But listen, it was great for like media to communicate
Yeah.
in front of a camera, whatever it is, to make sure that you're.
Would it put you off at all what you were trying to do, like as a player? Or
No, it was totally fine.
Just to be able to
I was
focus on it.
We
yeah,
watched a
it's
clip
fine.
of it this morning in big
Did you?
preparation for this, and there's something about it's just like the era, the lighting, the way it looks. No offense, it looks like a still game sketch.
Is it?
I don't know why. It's like Charlie
Charlie
Adams
Adams in the
signing his
boardroom with his mum and
contract.
dad.
He's in the boardroom, the suit.
His mum and
Just
dad
looks
sitting
like
there,
still
it's like,
game. But I'll get you onto it. I loved it at the time.
yeah, I need to see this.
Right, flat white or cortado?
Oh, I had a cortado before I came.
How big a coffee buff are you exactly?
I love coffee.
Is that like your thing?
I
after
love coffee,
Just
coffee.
always been or post football or?
It was probably when I went to England, I started just constantly drinking coffee because I would be on the bus a lot, travelling a lot.
But you're like a connoisseur properly.
Is that a posh
isn't it?
coffee? I've never heard of that.
a cortado.
See,
You do know. What are you? What, you,
What
what,
happened
would you, would you have?
A cappuccino?
he's a
No,
Nescafe
no,
man.
cappuccino's too milky.
I like council coffee. Man. Boiler
Cappuccino.
kettle.
Oh no, don't even speak to me after that.
It's never instant.
And that's shocking, isn't it? Because I'm a boy for the Gorbals.
gonna
I
say,
should be
you've
drinking.
changed.
I should be
Changed.
drinking
I've
as
got a
what you
capsule
said.
coffee in
That.
here, to be fair.
Council coffee.
Listen,
Council
if that's what you like, that's what you like.
Did you drink
but-
That's all
cortados and the Gorbals in the 90s?
Yeah, well, I like
Is that
I
your
cortados.
favourite?
never had hot water. In the
I like
Gorbals
double
in the 90s.
espressos. Double espressos my favourite, but if I want to go a wee bit longer, I'll try and stretch it out with a
Longer.
cortado.
See?
I like that.
Bigger. I call it bigger.
Bigger, yeah.
Longer. Okay, fine.
More volume.
You've played in loads. Best derby you've played in?
Oh, Celtic Rangers,
Easy.
isn't it? It's easy.
Okay,
That's
do
so
you know what?
easy that.
Rubbish question.
That is
What's
a
the next
tier.
best?
The
Because
next best,
what you done? Birmingham, Forest Derby.
I would
The
say,
Wales, the Swansea,
no,
kind of.
I would say you're right. Well done, the Welsh.
Was it
He's
that
even
one? Yeah, there's
answering
so
his
much-
questions for him.
Do you know what? We actually had to play at 11 a.m.
They hate
Imagine
each
a
other.
kick off at
11 a.m.
Chicken
Swansea
pasta.
Cardiff.
on,
Yeah.
on Sky Sports, 11 a.m.
Who's your
Massive.
ultimate wing king?
Who I've played with?
Up to you. No, probably growing up, or who's the? Do you just think like top winger? If you to coach your kids to be like any winger, who's the top?
coached my kids back in the day or now. Do you want me to overcomplicate
I know we
this?
get ourselves in trouble.
I reckon
just
just
don't
who's
know.
your favourite
Winger growing
of all
up.
time.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
My favourite winger growing up was, I liked watching Brian Laudrup. I know obviously he played
Yeah, okay.
in a forward area, but I liked the way Brian Laudrup played the game.
CIS Cup or Kirin Cup?
Oh, it has to be the Kirin Cup, doesn't it? That's one of the trophies that Scotland won.
We are
So
in the
obviously Scotland have
presence
got a
of a
trophy.
history maker.
Yes.
More recently than England.
Exactly.
Do you know what?
Love
I'll
that.
tell you something. You need to go back and watch. Have you seen that either?
We're trying to
I've never-
educate.
no, I really
we
want
need
to.
to
So you go
educate them on
back-
everything
so-
sort of post.
Have you got a Kirin Cup medal still? Have you
COVID.
still-
I do.
You must
I have
do,
a
yeah.
Kirin Cup medal. I actually have
International
this.
winning-
I actually have the strip in my house.
Had
But
you
it's
ever
that-
heard of the Kirin Cup?
I think we spoke
Till
about it today. It
recently.
must be in my brain somewhere. It's not like it was the first time I'd heard it today, but it sort of rejogged my memory. Is the trophy somewhere in Hampden? Is that
Oh, I
It's
don't
got
know.
to be somewhere, surely.
It's in mine. I've still
You've
got
got the trophy.
I've got it.
Yeah.
You- Actually, the first goal that I scored for Scotland, fortunately I scored 2 in my debut against Bulgaria. The first goal was an unbelievable goal. If that was nowadays, that team goal, they must have had about 25 passes before we finished it off. And
Puts
we
his
finished it.
Cortado in the Kirin Cup. Drinks it still.
You need to watch that.
Yeah, I will do. I will.
Okay, your turn.
I'm worried
Okay,
about
right.
my questions now.
Kevin, best shirt swap you've had?
Oh, I was never a shirt swapper, but I've got Roy Keane's only black Celtic strip that he wore when he was up here, and Roy
Nice.
Keane
That'd be
is
worth
one of my heroes.
Is that hung up somewhere? Or
It's in my games room, mine.
I like that.
The only thing I wish I had them sign it.
Oh, he didn't sign it. We can surely hook that up. He
Can
watches
we?
the show. He must do.
I wouldn't like to be the guy that asks that question.
Yeah, I thought about sending them a DM
DM
on
'em.
Instagram, but I think it's going to work.
Fair enough.
Sorry, who's this?
We'd have to get you one of the like golden or silver pens in it.
Yeah,
It's
you would,
like-
wouldn't
yeah.
I like that.
Do you miss the Hibs haircut?
Well, I miss having hair.
That's a bit
or as
nice,
much
looking
hair
up.
as I used
Yeah,
to
okay.
have. Well, I've got 2 young kids that like fancy haircuts now and skin fades and all these
Expensive,
mad
aren't they?
floppy fringes and that. But
Yeah.
I suppose I was that lad myself one day.
Fair enough. Winning the title as a manager or a player, what's better?
Listen, you can never get away from the feeling of winning as a player. It's or being a player, sorry. But I have to say, winning a title at Kelty, knowing how much it is for everybody else, is I suppose the type of person I am. So even though like personal accolades and being involved in that changing room and winning titles, etc., which are obviously amazing, it's why we all do it. But I have to say, like, as proud as I was of the staff and the club and the community, and then all the players that I've seen how hard they worked through the season to then get that opportunity to win League Two was pretty special.
But just player, you'd say.
I won a couple when I was a player,
Yeah.
so I would say player edges it just because it's
Yeah.
it's
You're
what
on
you
the
work
pitch,
at. It's boyhood dream, innit?
Derek Riordan or Garry O'Connor?
Both mates of mine.
Oh,
Totally
naughty.
different.
It's a tough
That's
question.
naughty. from
That
you.
is like comparing apples and pears.
That's cheeky.
Sitting on the fence.
Cheeky from you.
Aye, well, that's cheeky. That good mates of mine. I would
Weekly
say
line-
if my head had to be on the block, I would say,
Cup final.
oh, it's hard. That. Who would
Cup
you pick?
final.
Who would you pick?
Riordan.
I think Riordan was more talented, but O'Connor was raw and he was unbelievable. But like he was a power machine.
Yeah.
But Riordan, like when you think of like that brain and that
Maverick,
technical
no?
mavericky type, and you know could go unnoticed in games and then pop up with like I've seen his Hearts goal recently flick around kind of social media, the one that he scores into Craig Gordon for probably the best part of it. He's probably the only player in the country at that given time that could have done that. So I say Riordan maybe more talented, but listen, love them both.
Okay. And biggest name in your phone book?
Steven Gerrard.
That's
all right,
great.
that,
That's
innit?
good. That is good.
That's
I have
quite
to
good.
say.
That I could
Couldn't
with that.
compete.
Steve,
That's why we
could
didn't ask you.
Could you? I got Kirin Cup.
Yeah, he's
what's that else?
probably blocked me or something, but I do hope.
Still got Steve Clark's number.
Unless he's changed it.
There you go.
I don't
Exactly.
think so anyway.
That'll be fine. You're obviously both passionate, about helping young players, and it doesn't seem like so long ago that you were both in that
No.
situation.
That's for me.
It's strange that even
Well,
I can now
I'd
remember
yell at
that.
I'd yell at Sam. I don't.
They still got a lot of similarities, don't
Yeah,
you worry.
we did.
What was your own journey like coming through, and how different is it to now? What was that? What did it look like?
Oof. How did I think back then? So I was probably fortunate that Rangers Academy and the coaching staff, and the first team manager at the time was that Avocat was the one that signed me. I was training with them a lot, so getting that exposure to train with top players that were winning World Cups, winning championships.
Which were the ones at the time that you really looked up to? Just one or two that you can remember at that time?
Listen, there was so many, but there was obviously big characters in there, wasn't there? There was, you could even go back to the stage just talking about, you know, Barry Ferguson and what he brought to Rangers, with not just his playing ability but his character. You know, you had Rod Wallace, you had Lorenzo Amoroso, you had the likes of Stefan Klos, the goalkeeper. You had huge. The list could go on with the characters, and then I could talk about the time when I actually was fortunate enough to play with the players, the likes of the Boers, even at times Mikel Arteta. This guy sitting next to me, Kevin Thomson, who came in and done ever so well at
Can't believe you threw my name off the back of the
Mikel Arteta, two of the best midfielders to have graced the Premiership.
I think Kevin is to take great credit because, and I actually think at Hibs, if you think about it, that pool of players that came through at his age level and then pushed on and kicked on to, no disrespect, but they went to probably a bigger club and they've done so well. And it's probably not easy to go from Hibs to then go into an environment where you're going to Rangers, where you're demanding to win every week, you're playing in Europe, you are dealing with big characters, and he took it to duck to water. Yeah. Straight away, he came in and he did ever so well. So anyway, that's my little plug for you.
Let me ask you a question quickly off the back of that. Take us before the big characters. What did the academy look like for you? Like, say 14, 15, 16 before you went full time?
So it was different back then. You could train and go away and play with other clubs. Nowadays, you're tied down, aren't you? So I probably, in hindsight, if I was to think about it, I learned a lot from different other clubs, different coaching styles, just exposing myself to the different environments, where it probably now you're only really exposing yourself to one environment. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I probably got my chance at Rangers through a rule that was under 21 rule, where you had to have certain players on the bench and playing. I remember I made my debut because Tory Andrew Flo got injured and I made the bench, and then the team, Rangers were beating Kilmarnock, I think 3 or 4-1 at the time at home at Ibrox, and I get to go on and I score, and don't get me wrong, you still have to make an impact, you still have to show that you're good enough to play on the pitch, but if maybe that rule wasn't in place, would I have really have got that opportunity? Because other players are getting left out. There was so many good players that were getting left out the squad that were more experienced than me, played at a higher level than me, but it was because of maybe a little rule in the league that would happen. So
seized your opportunity when it came.
Yeah, so you still have to seize your opportunity, no matter what. I think for any kid going up and getting a chance with the first team or training with the first team, or
is that what you try and tell your
opportunity.
players now? Because you're obviously coaching the younger lads at Killie.
Yeah, I think the one thing you have to do is when you're asked to train with the first team, go make an impact. There's no point in just training for the sake of it and thinking, because don't get me wrong, I've been in that situation. I'm sure Kevin is. When you get that call to train with the first team, it's fear-based straight away. You think to yourself, oh, no, I hope I don't make a mistake.
Were they on you? Were they quite tough with you, or was it?
Oh, of course they were.
Was there
themes he was mentioning?
But was there some that would like put an arm around your shoulder and be like, "It's all right," or was it all just completely?
Yeah, listen, there was a healthy demand as well. Yep. Like Arthur Newman was fantastic with me. He left back. I played against him. He would talk to me through the game. You need to do this. You need to do that. I had the likes of Shota Valadze, who was fantastic with me after training, teaching me how to use my left foot and my right foot and how to cross the ball. You know, they had so many players there that would give you their little nuggets, and it's just basically the fundamentals, really. I mean, the fundamentals will never lose. I'll never dry away from the game, and if you don't do the fundamentals right, then ultimately you'll never ever get to the talent that you think you're going to get to.
Kevin, and you've spoken many times, obviously in the last couple of years, about the impact Walter Smith had. What was it about his style that you felt suited you?
Well, Burke just really mentioned it wasn't so much a coaching thing, was it? It was the biggest things I learned were life skills really off of Walter. He was the best of the best. A humility, and a respect, the personality, the presence that he had. So I suppose like they were the biggest morals that I took off of Walter. He wasn't somebody that put out the bibs and the cones. He was obviously tactically unbelievable, but like your Kenny Coyces and Kenny McDowell's would run training day to day. So I was actually going to flip that when you asked that question to Burke. Tony Mowbray would probably be the one that as the first coach that probably, so we had Donald Park when we were youth team players, and he was the same, like the standards, the timekeeping, the doing your jobs properly. So like you learnt really basic morals that I think are good life lessons to stand you in good stead. But Tony was probably the first manager that I had, or coach that I had in my young career, that made me start to think about football. So even with daft things, not because he's sitting here, but when Burke broke into the team, he was a match winner, he was a game changer. So when our young Hibs team played against Rangers under Alex McLeish, a Burke would be like a key player. Whereas like when we had like a Bobby Williamson, who was brilliant, loved Bob to bits, still speak to him in contact, and he gave a lot of the young players the opportunity, but there was probably less detail. Whereas a Tony was the first one that started to speak about body position and the speed of the game, like having the composure to slow the game management, like these type of things. I was thinking, I still remember Tony Mowbray saying to me, like, if you didn't start receiving off your back foot, you're never going to get to the top. And I'm now telling my dad, like, played 50 games, like, now all of a sudden I've got this coach and he's on me. And my dad's like, what? And I'm like, I think I'm all right, good though. And he started to make me think. So I'm like, and I was a natural lefty, so I like to take the ball back into where it come from. With my first touch off my left peg, he wanted me to open up on my right foot so I could then see obviously the other side of the pitch. I'd maybe take that touch there and still be able to get it there, but obviously all of a sudden I started to think, and we used to turn up on the training pitch and things were set up. Do you know what I mean? So, and you would go for A to B to C, you'd go for some sort of technical drill into like a game-related practice, into some sort of condition
Probably ahead
game.
of his time then, wasn't he?
Aye, so and Tony obviously had the Ipswich kind of academy background as such, you know what I mean? And I'm saying this, so people are talking about body shape now, we false fullbacks and all these type of things. Tony was doing that when we were 19. You know, and so you fast forward 20, 21 years and all of a sudden there's people put on a wee coaching thing that might be catch people's attention online or whatever, and Tony was coaching
Tony
that.
Mowbray, yeah.
Brilliant.
Trendsetter, yeah, nice.
Tell you what, let's take a look at the fixtures. Looking forward to this weekend. It's been a bit of a stop-start time for the league with international breaks in the Cup last week, which was an entertaining weekend. But look at that for a card. I think, obviously, well, in unusual fashion, let's start with Sunday because it's the Kevin Thomson derby. What are you thinking ahead of that first league game back at
First league game,
I don't know about the
Ibrox?
Kevin Thomson derby.
Well, we had the Tony Watt derby last week, didn't we? In
Dundee United.
Motherwell,
Yeah.
Dundee United. So I'm just going to try and keep that theme
Did
going.
you score against Hibs for Rangers?
Nah.
Never. So you
Would you
didn't
have
have that
celebrated?
decision about celebrating.
Nah, I would never.
You wouldn't have celebrated?
Nah, probably not. No. But to be fair, obviously, I never had a good reputation when I obviously went back, which was hard to take. But we obviously, the first time I went back to Easter Road was only 2 or 3 weeks after I signed. And obviously,
How was the reception? Not good, no.
Not very good. That. So I still was really I tried to be really respectful. People will probably say you weren't, but I did. But we won, I think, there 3-0 maybe the following season. And because of the stick I'd had, I was probably like a wee bit more jubilant when we did score. But prior to that, I was probably less, and I would certainly be less now. Do you know what I mean? But yeah.
Why was that? Just general player leaves club and fans don't like it. It was nothing more in it.
Or you maybe say the wrong things, I suppose, when you're younger, and you do, in hindsight, you do the wrong things, don't you? But it's
See that Hibs experience though before you go. What was that like? Because everybody mentions the two things: the talent that team had, but probably the size of the characters as well in that dressing room. What was it like?
It was brilliant. Listen, it was brilliant. It was a kind of match made in heaven. A lot of us were obviously boyhood fans. You're getting an opportunity. It's probably unique. Probably when Burke was starting to get through at Rangers, he speaks about being in that changing room. I know McGregor would have just been before him, and Charlie Adams was no far away. Hutz was obviously no far away. So there was one or two breaking through at the one time. But probably that Rangers team that we played against, Burke was the young lad. You had probably Bob Malcolm, Stevie Hughes, boys like that before him. But when we kind of took that transition over, it was like me, Scotty, Whittaker, Riordan, O'Connor. We kind of all went together. So it felt as though normally when you, like, where do you sit in a bus? You're scared to sit in somebody's seat. Where do you sit at pre-match? Do you know what I mean? All these wee things. People
Did you ever get kicked out of someone's seat?
You were
on the
half
bus?
the
I
team.
did. So
Did
the
you?
first time I
Who's-
was in the first team bus, I sat in that seat. I got told it was Mixus. Sat in that seat. I got told it was Nick Colgan's. Sat in that seat. I got told it was Gary Smith. So I was like, just want me going
Did you
on the
stand,
bus with it.
did you stand in the aisle?
It's like Forrest Gump, because he is getting on that bus when he's going to the army,
That's what
right?
I'm saying.
Like that,
Like
yeah.
these wee things, whereas because we obviously moved over together, we were quite a powerful wee group within and obviously we slightly talented, so we kind of made a name for ourselves quite quick, and I'm not saying we run the place, but we started to build up profiles quite quickly. I'd like to think that the senior players respected us quite quickly.
Got your
So
seat
it's
on the
quite-
bus eventually.
Aye, so yeah, you started to pick your seat. Aye.
Yeah.
Were you? I mean, you're obviously all, he says, slightly talented. Did you see
I
that?
know,
Playing
yeah,
it
yeah,
down.
yeah.
More than that, I can say that on behalf of you. Were you and Scott Brown, obviously, real sort of game face, hard workers, and I'm not saying the others weren't at all, but there's that reputation that there was a bit more madness maybe in some of the others. Was it a nice Was that a nice blend? What was the dynamic like?
Yeah, it was. Listen, Scotty's as daft as a brush, isn't he?
I suppose as well,
That's the way he is. He's the joker. He's the one that would be mucking about. And that was our upbringing, really. You couldn't kick us out of Easter Road. We loved what we were doing. We appreciated what we were doing. We weren't getting paid buckets of money, so we were working class boys that were just living the dream, really. And we'd muck about in the turnstiles. We would muck about in the pitch. We would be kicking balls off walls, breaking the tiles in the ceiling, filling up the baths, throwing people in the baths, like just be daft things, really. And then you had obviously Riordan O'Connor.
So who's the number one troublemaker out of those three then?
Riordan O'Connor and Scotty.
Scott Brown.
Aye, Scotty, 100%.
Really?
Aye. Decent guys, decent guys have got this boisterous, and maybe when they're in a club or a boozer, they might have a bit more boisterous. But actually, as trainers, and Burke will probably vouch for it, you cannot have the talent that they had and have the careers that they have for no being great trainers. They were boys that you couldn't kick off the training pitch. They might have had an opinion about something that Tony might not have agreed with, or Bobby might not have agreed with, or different managers. Obviously, maybe Deeks when he went to Celtic or whatever, Gordon maybe had a few disagreements. But as trainers and as talented football players, they were brilliant. Different personalities for obviously Scotty and Whittaker, who I was obviously closer to than they pair. Gaz and Deeks were obviously a year older than that generation, so they kind of got in first. They got the bigger contracts first, driving nicer cars first. So everything kind of come to them a wee bit sooner than obviously the next.
Something you could aspire to, though, like you could.
Burke will tell you the way we were made. But I start to see Burke have a nice car. I want to have a nice car. Burke gets a new contract. I want a new contract. You know, so if Gaz starts to score the goals and starts to get into the Scotland squads, that progression's coming to him first. His journey started a wee bit before you. So it's the way we are made is there's a natural egotistic part of us players that we think we're better than everybody else. And you, however humble and respectful you'd like to be, that fire in your belly never leaves you, and you back yourself against people. So when you're a young player breaking through, I used to get annoyed when Scott Brown used to win man of the match because I wanted to be man of the match. I loved him to bits. We'd then go and share a flag. Of course it is, and I think that's the way it should be.
What's that friendship been like over the years? Because you must, I see it from the outside, there's obviously this expectation that, you know, when you both go to opposite sides of Glasgow, how can you possibly be friends? And you've obviously maintained it clearly over the years, and you know, Rangers fans will always post videos of you smashing Celtic players in tackles, and then it's vice versa for him. And at the end of the day, you know, obviously you're very close, so or where, you know, grew up together. How's that relationship developed throughout all that stuff?
It's just stayed the same. But listen, it's difficult, isn't it? And when Burke will tell you, when Old Firm games come and you're opposite sides of the city, the rivalry is there, and you'd never change that for anyone because it's what the clubs are made on, rivalry. And the fan base would never accept you being in each other's pockets leading into such a game with so much magnitude aligned to it. But I think when it comes to being normal human beings and him having a young family, me having a young family, wives are friends, it's like, I don't understand why anyone would think that's any different for an Asda worker going for a beer with a Tesco's worker.
Mr. YouTube, how many views do you think him tackling Robbie Keane has got? Because every time Rangers and Celtic meet, I just see
Sam. Remember, 80% of them are mine.
I just see thousands of people sending it to him every time. They play each other 4 and 5 times. That would be
they do play each other too much, don't they? But that would be doing well. We'll have to check it out later.
How many times you watched it? A few.
I think my mum's maybe 10%, my dad's 10%. I'm the other.
Your kids
and your lads as well. Yeah.
Well, listen, the boy. You have to tell the boys that you were all right one day. But
I know, but when you show them on YouTube,
my boys both think I was rubbish. So it's like I used to go for like Ronaldo, Messi, Dad in the posters when they used to scribble at the playgroup, and then it was like Jason Cummins, Martin Boyle, then Dad. I'm like, I'm not.
That's a blow.
I'm not.
Will they reach?
I don't know if
reach
you
your
have time,
level?
but I've got a story about that with your kids. So
With my kids?
no,
I
yours.
thought you meant my
No,
kids.
yours.
So he's got something to tell the guy.
Last part of the Player of the Year awards at Kilmarnock in the Championship when we get promoted. Was my last one anyway, so I was okay. I wasn't amazing. I was a team player.
Too humble, these two.
I was.
Starting to annoy me, but
No, you
So-
were impact. You came off the bench a few times.
I
when I
did,
saw you
yes, I
playing,
did.
made
I
an
did.
impact.
I
Yeah,
did.
I remember
So
that.
basically, to talk about your kids there, because they don't really get to see you much. Now, my oldest has seen me. He's seen me play for Birmingham. He's seen me playing for Norton Forest. He's seen me playing for Kilmarnock for a long spell as well. So getting ready in my room, getting my shirt and tie on for the awards do. And my boy asked me, he says, "Where you going?" I said, "Oh, I've got the Player of the Year awards at Kilmarnock." And he said, "Right, okay, no problem." And he goes into his room for play his Xbox. And I go in, I say, "Right, that's me away, mate. I'm going. See you later." And he says, "Dad, I would give you an award tonight. I said, well, in myself, I'm not going to get an award. I'm not going to top goal scorer. I'm not going to get player of the year. I'm not going to get goal of the season, whatever it is. So I said, what award would you give me then? And he turned around and says to me, most improved player. And I think to myself, so basically I'm 38. I'm at the age of 38 here. He's watched me playing for all these teams. He must have sat and watched 8 games thinking, he is rubbish. He is crap. But you know what? See that season there? He's actually got a bit better.
Most improved. So how old was he when he gave that
bar really low?
How old was he?
He was at the age of 14.
Oh, okay. So okay.
Is this the same? Do you not coach this same son now?
Yes.
He's a talent as well, mate.
Aye, so
How is that?
Oh, how is that?
Difficult?
I don't really want to go into that.
Easy.
But no, listen, I have to just treat him the same as any other kid as much as I can, but I also be mindful of the fact
To call you gaffer.
that no, I don't get anybody because they just call me Burke or
Same
whatever.
position.
He's a wide player. So yeah, he can
Better than
play.
you at that age.
I think I'll say no comment in that.
Same with
It's
you, Kevin. How
different.
about
Can't
you?
say
You're
that.
It's
like,
hard.
Listen, there'll be some player if
it
he's as good as his
it
dad,
comes.
that's for sure.
Each player's different, and he'll tell you the same when your kids play. As long as
Different
as
era
they're
as well.
happy and
Yeah.
enjoying it, I don't want to influence it too much. Where yes, there's the elephant in the room. I coach my own son, but at the same time, I have to make sure that he's feeling comfortable. It's harder for him than it is for me because he's still a young kid learning, developing his brain to hopefully become more mature. Like any kid at that age, the age of 16 and up. Or even
Just think,
15
son,
to
if you stick
16.
in, you two could be most improved player, age 38.
I know. Well, listen, that's a
a life
great.
lesson.
It's actually a little lesson if you think about it for anybody. Anybody can improve
It's
at
true.
any age.
Yeah.
I like
So
that.
as
Like,
much
yeah.
as
Well,
much
that's
as he was,
profound.
Yeah, exactly.
as much as I thought to myself,
At the
deep
time,
down,
No, I
how
like
dare
that.
you? At the same time, it is an actual
In
lesson.
terms of
in that.
this current one, Kevin, is the first league game back at Ibrox for Rangers. Hibs, I mean, not a brilliant start to the season, but they might say they've played Celtic twice within that as well, and it's not an easy run of fixtures. How do you view this game at the weekend?
Oh, listen, there's no getting away from how difficult it is going to go to Ibrox and try and get 3 points. I'm sure Dave and the boys will relish the challenge. But early kickoffs always a wee bit exciting, and there's obviously been a lot of animosity with the tickets, obviously over social media with the fans, etc. And everybody knows there's a kind of fierce rivalry there with Rangers and Hibs. So I'd expect Rangers to win because that's what they have to do. But I certainly think the Hibs will be going there, as you mentioned, off the back of a good result. Against St Johnstone, some sort of momentum. They're going to need to try and build on that.
Dwight Gale as well. It'd be interesting to see him.
Sorry,
Dwight Gale as well.
I think they've actually, when you think of Hoylett, got a lot of plaudits off the back. He obviously making his debut just last week, and I think they've recruited well. I think they've, at one stage, it looked as though they were holding fire to try and potentially move 1 or 2 on before they could then release some sort of wages. But it looks as though I was quite impressed with the Gordon's kind of interview that they obviously done, that when they come out and took some responsibility for some of the mistakes they've made. And listen, there's no doubt that there's no many people that have the same appreciation for the fans as Sir Dave Gray, really. So if anyone was going to get an opportunity to be backed and be given time to try and build some sort of momentum, some sort of feel-good factor at Easter Road, then it'd be Dave.
And as for Rangers, you both know just the scrutiny that goes on, and you just can't make it disappear in a week, nowhere near it. Is it just about trying to put a run together? You know, they're domestically started to tick along a bit. Is that the only way to get that feel-good factor going, is just to turn 3 wins into 10 and 10 into, you know, whatever?
I think that'll be the only way that they can stay on Celtic's coattails, to be honest, Gordon. I can see Celtic going on that 10, 12, 15 game run, and obviously eventually that will come an Old Firm game. So if they were potentially to win that one as well, the gap potentially, I hate that word gap, but the point tally would be obviously far superior towards Celtic. I get the feeling, and it's not a nice feeling, and I mean this in the greatest respect, but I feel as though the relationship with the fans and the team at the moment is that one bad result away from more scrutiny, from more stick, and that is what it feels like to represent the Old Firm. You're under pressure, whether it's pre-season games, cup games, whether you're playing Champions League against teams that are far better than you. It just becomes with the DNA of the club. But the hard part is, as Celtic are doing so well, they sell Matt O'Reilly, they recruit really well, they get the chequebook out. They've obviously started off well in the Champions League. They've started well off domestically, and I think they're going to get better and better. They've got a brilliant manager, obviously, in Brendan. So it's daunting for everybody else, and obviously naturally for Rangers, you finish in second, people see that as a failure.
Looking at the fixtures, former Ross County player Chris Burke, people
Yeah.
forget about that
Yeah,
spell.
they do,
I'm
don't they?
glad we
That was
can-
a very short spell as
glad
well.
we can
How
cover
many
off.
clubs did you actually play for?
I didn't play for that many. It was probably 7, maybe 6 or 7.
Must be more than that.
No, honestly, I didn't play for that many.
Can
Cardiff,
they
Forest.
spoil see when you've got a fixture like that? If you're Ross County, are you really trying to pile on the sort of misery for Hearts? Does the new manager bounce or whatever the theory has come into it with Liam Fox taking interim charge? That's a fascinating one, isn't it?
It is, you're right in saying that because
Especially, sorry to interrupt, mate, but after the draw that Ross County got last week as well.
Yeah.
I think that was a huge point.
You're right in saying that. Obviously bouncing back from being 2-0
with
2-0
a few
down,
minutes to go,
a few minutes to go and scoring later. And what a header that was, the third goal in it.
Yeah.
What a header that was. Anyway, so Hearts in Ross County, I think it'll be very, very interesting because you've got Liam Fox who's stepping in as interim, very high regarded at Hearts. You would like to think that the players will take all the information on board and look to have a home game against them, against Ross County and start their season, hopefully kickstart their season. But then you've got Ross County who will probably look on the flip side and saying they've lost their manager. Let's try and dig even deeper into them and hurt them even more. What I would be saying if I was Ross County is the first 50 minutes is going to be really, really important in the game, where you don't want Hearts to have a good start because they'll probably look to start fast, as Liam Fox would probably be saying that to Hearts. So the first 50 minutes could be really, really interesting in that game, because if Ross County keep it at 0-0 the first 15 minutes, even to half time, then what are the Hearts fans going to be like in that? So it's a really interesting game, that Hearts versus Ross County for me, Gordon.
Yeah, Chris already gave us a bit of an insight into the challenges of European football and what that's meant to Kilmarnock. Dundee United coming off the back of that cup exit at Fir Park. I had to just get that one in there on Friday night. Speaking of which, the Stephen Robinson back to Fir Park as well. I always like the look of those fixtures. There was a time when the St Mirren team was littered with players that Stephen Robinson had at Motherwell. It's not quite that way anymore. But that's a cracking fixture,
well,
and of course everybody expecting Celtic really to keep on that winning run. But Andy Kirk, what can he come up with in interim charge of St Johnstone? The Kevin Thomson derby will round it all off on Sunday. Let's take a look at the Championship as well. Championship for you this week? No?
It's Scottish Cup this weekend, so I think I'm going to be doing some.
Of course he is. First round of the Scottish Cup.
Love that.
He's not bothered about the...
Where are you going?
Musselburgh v Darvel.
No, it's...
I noticed that one.
Albion Rovers Talbot.
That's
a proper...
nice.
We've got enough of
Good.
it. Trying to go through these league
do,
fixtures without you delving too
Sorry,
far
into
into
the
the
junior.
the cup. But we obviously mentioned Scott Brown.
Have they drawn their last 3? I think,
so Morton going there, trying to get that winning run going. Difficult to look beyond Raith Falkirk, isn't it? John McGlynn, we spoke about the job he's doing. He's coming up against his former club as well. They've appointed a new manager. That's a fascinating one, that, isn't it?
As in obviously Raith, I'm right in saying, conceded last kick the ball almost, didn't they, against Hamilton. Ollie Shaw, am I right in saying? John will obviously have ties, he'll have people who obviously think fondly, obviously plenty of people behind the scenes at Raith, so it's one that I know Neil Collins really well. He'll be desperate to obviously start to get points on the board. An intriguing one, because Falkirk still unbeaten, aren't they, in the Championship? So
they've still won all their games in the
flying,
Championship.
absolutely flying.
And probably two styles that I'd expect it to be a good game of football. I think Raith try and obviously play, or they did under Ian Murray. I've not obviously watched them as of yet under Neil, but Falkirk will obviously go there and try and play. But I when you mentioned there in Greenock Morton, Gordon, I cannot believe Dougie Emery goes so unnoticed with the success that he's had at Morton. I think we obviously went over Burkey's on his pro licence with him, fiery wee character, was as a player, but he does a brilliant job on limited resources at Morton.
Yeah, it does.
Not a far journey for Hamilton Accies, Partick Thistle as well, a nice sort of local one there. What about League One then? If you get your Scottish Cup tie postponed, I think we'll send you somewhere, League One or League Two. I think that's usually your
Kelty.
You still keep an eye on Kelty, Kevin?
So my brother-in-law, who's obviously my full-time coach, who was my assistant at Kelty, is back at Kelty. So and obviously Tids was my captain obviously when I was at Kelty. So Geordie's my best mate, and Tids is obviously somebody that I think really highly for. He was a massive factor in us being successful there, because a brilliant captain, and we inherited him really obviously off the back of Barry. So when you think back, he was a real cog in the kind of fire that we generated at Kelty.
Yeah, I'm seeing Scott Allen and his broken wrist quite often these days. He's got his Stuckey on from the rigours of League One. I just feel like if you left your cup tie early, we could get you up to. Why don't you go up north to one of them, and then you could go to Cove or
Arbroath's the late, look at that.
5. I
Yeah.
can see that for you. And we'll round off.
struggling after obviously nearly being in. That was the same season. You beat them
It's
on
your
the
fault, really,
last
actually.
day,
That was
didn't
my
you, Killie?
fault. Yeah,
That was your
actually, come
last-
on.
Yeah,
We're getting
okay.
beat.
You
We're getting beat
sent
1-0.
our both
changed the
into a
game.
downward spiral.
Thanks.
So that, but it was obviously
Campbell will
Killie
never
got
forgive you.
promoted.
What?
Killie got promoted off the back of that.
We did.
Arbroath were 1-0 up. They could have, if
They-
they'd have won that game, they'd have.
I think if
Had
they'd
to
won,
win one
then
more.
they had to win the next game, which
was
they
a home
would have.
game.
They were at home game anyway.
Yeah, and they would have won the league
So
and
we
been in the
were.
Premiership.
We would
Whereas
have
now
then
they're
need to win Raith Rovers
down the
and beat Raith Rovers, but we beat off Raith Rovers the last game of the season. But obviously the league
You'd
was in
already-
the bags,
yeah.
and I think there was a few boys that were
Bartymore.
Enjoying
partying for the
themselves
last
a
3
little
days.
bit,
The
yeah.
3 days before the game.
You look like them. You're at all these games. People are going to start asking questions.
I
So
know,
let's
but we
move
are
on
in the
to-
same place now. so we
Let's
can
move
put
on to
those
League
in.
2 before we get ourselves in any more trouble. We've obviously been keeping an eye on the Spartans because of their cup exploits.
Yeah.
Really, I
They're
don't
doing
think any shame in losing to Aberdeen. Everyone's losing to
No, exactly,
Aberdeen
yeah.
currently. So
No, it's an interesting League 2 right now. Peterhead doing well, obviously, and do you guys still obviously you won League 2 as Kelty manager?
Michael McIndoe's doing a great job at Edinburgh City as well on a small budget.
Yeah, true. Because they've had
Um,
their issues off the
They've
pitch.
had their issues
obviously,
off
yeah,
pitch,
yeah.
aye. So it's obviously I know Alan Mowbray still in Albion, so now our job obviously just no long come up. So
There's
real competitive.
there's 4 or 5 teams that are down there that are all within about a point of each other. How precarious is that just to be in that bottom spot with the playoffs?
It's horrible, and then obviously you've got people like I know Callum really well at Bonnyrigg Rose. No, it's an intrigue. It's probably as same again. You could argue it's probably the one year in the last few years
Yeah,
when you
so
think
tight.
Kelty obviously having a good budget when we were there. Queen's Park obviously went through it as well with big budgets. You know what I mean? So there's been teams down there that have obviously maybe had a good opportunity to win the league before it starts. Obviously, so it's wide open for everybody, I suppose.
I think we'll round it off there. 2 top guests.
Right, yeah.
Delighted with that. Really enjoyed speaking to Kevin Thomson and Chris Burke. Do you want to do the official bit, the bit that I never get right?
Yes, everyone, please subscribe. Also, I want you to leave a comment this week. Let us know who you want us to get on in future weeks. So we want to hear from you. Who do
They
you want
don't
us to-
have to look like Sam though. That's not a prerequisite. They
I
can
think we
look.
do. Want some good-looking guys on the
It
show.
doesn't matter. But anyway, thanks again for
Thanks,
watching,
lads.
and we'll see you next time.